Alrighty, yo, what is up, Knights? Aegis Rick here, back with what to do at the max level cap of 100. Now guys, I made this series a couple months back for the level 95 cap, and now we are currently in the 100 cap, and a lot of things that I talked about in that previous video have changed. So I don't want you guys going back and forth. I'm going to be retreading a lot of the things that I already talked about in the other video. So if you guys have seen that series, basically forget that other series, okay? This series is called What to Do at the Max Level Cap of 100. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now that your journey into the end game actually starts at about level 96, actually. So, because at level 96, what ends up happening, due to how the leveling system works here for these last 5 levels up until 100, is that you actually get some of your gearing done early, or you can if you want to. You can also take another route I don't suggest if you don't have any gear, which this character, guys, for the demonstration, I'm going to assume that you're a character who just doesn't have any gear. Now, you guys see I have level 85 gear. I haven't played this guy literally in years. Okay, so I've just started leveling this guy. I do have some pretty decent gear, most likely better than what you have, but even if you're a little bit weaker than I am, this is still the course of action you're going to take. So, essentially, you're at level 96. What do? You run out of quests. You know, you're going to run out of quests and you're not going to be able to get to 97. There's only one thing you can do, essentially, and that is farming the Ghent Palace over here and getting your unique gear, level 100 unique gear. So what I suggest, guys, is talk to Edwin here, pick up his 2 quests that he gives. Okay, he has this Ghent Palace memory quest, which is going to give us 1 free piece of level 100 uniques. And then every 5 times you do it, you also get an EXP pot that helps you level up just a little bit faster. Not all that important, really. But this is the NPC. You guys can see Lindsay right here is actually selling all of the gear that we're going to be getting. And essentially what I'm talking about here is we can farm a full set of gear here just from that NPC. You know, you can go into Expert if you have a little bit of gear. You know, maybe you're using rental gear if you had gear from the previous cap. Or, you know, I'm just going to showcase. It doesn't really matter. You can do normal and just be perfectly fine for content. Now, you might, if you've done your scenario, you might not have enough FP to run, you know, the full day's worth. You might only, you know, you might not even be able to run very many at all. But essentially what we're kind of looking at here is that the grinding progression will only take you about 20 runs. So when you're done with those 20 runs, you know, or even a little bit more, you know, you're going to have your full 12 out of 12 unique set. Now, I will mention that the dungeon layout for the Ghent Palace is random. There's a couple different layouts it can be. And in this particular layout, we have the option to completely skip the mini-boss. Now, that is not always the case. Sometimes you have to go through and take out the mini-bosses. It should be noted, I personally don't like going out of my way to kill those mini-bosses because although they have a chance of dropping unique gear outright, it's very rare, and I don't even think it's worth the time, quite frankly. That's the truth of it. I don't think it's worth the time to go down there and try to get that unique off of them. Instead, what I suggest is just to farm your dungeons, because you're getting 200 of these North Piece tokens every time. If you recall, the NPC Lindsay or whatever is selling them for 600. So every 3 dungeons, I'm guaranteed a piece, and you can get one from the boss, final boss, as well as a dungeon clearance reward. You have a lot of opportunities. I mean, we have 20 runs essentially per day that we can run this dungeon, and I think you'll have a full set before that 20 runs is over, or at least close to it. If you're unlucky and you don't get any pieces to drop, then unfortunately it might take you a little bit longer, but we're talking essentially a 12-piece set in 2 days maximum. You know, if we're talking power levels, essentially how I've looked at it is they're about in the same level of gear, okay? As the Harlem epics of the previous cap and the Tabor's epics of the previous cap. Both of those epics are about the same level of these level 100 uniques. They're like on the same tier of strength. One is a little bit stronger than the other. It's not a big deal because if you have any of those sets, then you essentially are good to go from this point in time. I mean, you use these sets. This is just a preliminary set. This unique is very strong on its own, and it's extremely easy to farm. Okay, like I said, you know, 2 days at the most to get this full set. Now, and this is all you have to do. Just run to the boss. Easy as that. Easy set to farm, takes you a couple days, and then really essentially what you're using it for, the only reason you're farming it is so that you can prepare yourself to do the harder contents, you know, farming the better gear at the later levels. So I did want to mention this because, you know, it's one of those things that's a tiny thing, and, you know, it's just something you can fall back on. You just know that you have, you know, if you don't have any gear, at least you have this to fall back on, and it's really simple, really brain dead. Now, maybe you have better gear than I have. Maybe you already have a Harlem Epic. Maybe you already have a Tabor's Epic, and this gear isn't useful. That's fine. The other reason that you farm this dungeon on the right here, you can see you get 4% EXP per run. So you're also farming this to actually level. Okay, so they've kind of incorporated the leveling as well as the gearing all in one, right? So, you know, at some point, if you're doing scenarios at level 95, if you start at level 95, you can't get to 97 straight up. You have to farm this dungeon a little bit, or you can farm some epic grinding. I'm not going to recommend that, because if you're watching a video like this, it's probably a little bit too advanced. But you know, this video is trying to showcase people who are just getting into the game and are trying to follow the intended progression path for level 100. So this is the content that you farm, guys. I don't think I have to have much else I really want to say about this content. It's, you know, like I'm showing right here, you can just do it on normal. If you're strong enough, do it on a higher difficulty. Whatever the case, it doesn't really matter. You guys can see I've been able to get the Ghent clear palace 5 times, so I can get this EXP pot. And I've also been able to clear enough times to get this pot right here, which is essentially a free piece of a unique gear, minus the weapon. So at this point, you know, you guys can see how many tokens I have. In those 5 runs, I've essentially gotten 2 pieces worth of uniques, and I didn't get any of them to drop, but I essentially now have a 3-piece set. You know, I would, you know, if I don't have a weapon already, I would purchase my weapon at this point in time, and then I'd probably wait a little bit before I start buying pieces outright. You know, just wait a little bit, because what could happen is some of that gear could drop outright, and you don't want to buy it early. So, pro tip, don't buy your gear until you absolutely need to. Just farm out all your runs. See what drops, and then purchase whatever is remaining. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and skip to the end of today and see what my haul is. So I'll be back in a sec. Now, one thing that is building up on the top right there, you can see I've actually just built up this gauge all the way up to full. And when it gets to full, when you're doing this content, you see I got a unique to drop from the boss right there. When that gauge gets to full, it means that the next run that I do is going to be a Guide of Wisdom run. So basically, in the dungeon, you're going to get a spawn of the Guide of Wisdom, which is going to be, well, it's essentially the goal of this series. It is basically what we're going to be doing at the end of this series. It's the goal of all in-game characters is to farm the Guide of Wisdom. What we're trying to do is farm hell modes, and this is essentially what hell mode looks like. You guys can see right here, you have this little orb that shows up, and then it spawns these guys in. Okay, then it spawns a mini boss, then it spawns a final boss, and then you have a chance of getting an epic there. And if you don't, well, then at least you get that wisdom fragments, which you can use for various systems that are in the game. So yeah, there's, you know, a lot of nuances with that. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the series, but that's the whole purpose we're doing this, guys. We're preparing to get ourselves strong enough to do the Guide of Wisdom, and that's kind of the end game goal. That's what we're trying to shoot for. Now, we're not there yet. Obviously, they kind of reduce the difficulty of that, but that dungeon where you normally farm the Guide of Wisdom is a little bit challenging. Okay, guys, so we have completed our 20 runs. Now, you guys can see, aside from that last one that we got, I've gotten no usable uniques. I did get a couple weapons to drop from the dungeon clearance and stuff like that, but the only usable piece I got was one, which is the necklace. Now, this is, I'd say it's pretty uncommon. I think if I was running on expert, I'd have a lot more uniques and a lot of chances to get usable uniques, but essentially we got one, and then we have 4,800. So we are a little bit behind on the gear, but remember that Jurgen did give us one already, and we did get one that dropped, so we can kind of see what we can work with here. We're not going to be able to get all of them, but maybe we can work towards it. So, alrighty, so I suggest getting the weapon for sure, and I'm going to get the rest of the accessories here. Now, it should be noted, you know, this is kind of a small thing. Like I said, this is kind of temporary gear, so it doesn't really matter that you optimize this gear all that much. But I should note that depending on what rarity it is for the day, you guys can see at the top left, we have a exceptional 70%, which could have an effect on how strong your weapon can be. Now, like I said, it's just a temporary weapon anyway, so it's not important that you optimize that hard, but it is something to consider. You guys can see right now we did manage to pick up the weapon as well as a 3-piece set. We're missing 3 pieces. I do still have the chest here. So we're going to have to farm a little bit tomorrow when we get more runs into the Ghent Palace. Unfortunately, you only get those 20 runs that will give you prizes. You can still keep going in there for the EXP if you want to just keep leveling in there, but you will no longer be getting any of the tokens. Now, one thing that I forget to mention in the video, so I'm going to interject it now, is that you can actually use your Explorer Club and go into the shop. If you go into the Glory Crystal shop, you guys can see that we actually can use some of our glory medals here to purchase a selection box from here. So essentially I can get these last two pieces if I really wanted to. I can purchase these two pieces right here, and then I will actually have my full set because I have one from the freebie quest, and then I can finish my set here. So you can use a little bit of your Explorer Club to kind of boost yourself. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it, just because it would have taken me like a couple runs at the most to be able to get the materials needed for these last two pieces. But hey, if you're really feeling desperate and you really want to get your unique set, I guess you can always rely on that. And now you can see I was able to finish my full set in one day. But as far as I'm concerned, guys, we are way stronger than before, and I'm going to showcase how much stronger we are in a second, but I just kind of want to preface what the idea is with this armor set. Okay, what has this armor set done for us that we couldn't do before? Okay, and to explain that, I'm going to jump onto another character to kind of demonstrate that, because one main concept you got to understand about 100 cap is that any improvements that you make to your gear, I'm talking reinforcement, I'm talking enchantments, I'm talking amplifications, any improvements that you make onto your gear can transfer into any other level 100 cap gear. And to do that, I'm going to demonstrate that with this unique. Let's just say I have, upgraded my lightsaber, my level 100 unique, and I'm farming harder content and I get this level 100 legendary. Obviously the legendary is much stronger. What can I do? Well, what you can do is go over here. We are now in the West Coast area. When you get to this point in the game, your West Coast is going to look a little bit different than what you might have before you hit next level, but essentially go down to Loton and you guys will see he has options to him that you might not have seen before. Now what we're going to be doing is the inheritance system. So if we go down to inherit, we have to unequip both of our gears, but yeah, we're going to jump into the inheritance system. Now I'm going to take my unique that I started reinforcing as +1, and I can just put it onto my legendary, and it's going to make it a +1. Now obviously you guys can see here I already have it +10. It can go either way. Maybe I want to take my +10 and I want to move it over to my +1 unique, and it'll make it a +10. So it can kind of go both ways. Any level 100 cap gear can be transferred onto any other gear. And you can imagine the abuse you can do with this. You can move enchantments over, you can move, reinforcement levels if you have it really highly reinforced, and the only thing that you need is Aelite, which is a material you're going to be getting a ton of in most all of the content that you do at level 100 cap. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you guys here is that this level 100 set, this unique set, is perfectly fine. It's perfectly safe to reinforce it, to optimize it, to put enchantments on it, and to spend all your money into improving that gear, because it's as easy as just simply inheriting it onto any other stronger gear that you get somewhere down the line. You can even go back and forth between this. You can, maybe you're testing out an epic. You have two different epics and you want to test that out on another epic. It's as easy as inheriting those stats on the other epic, and if you don't like it, you can switch it right back. It's no problem. Basically, it's shared improvement, okay? Alrighty guys, so now that we kind of understand what the Loton system is used for, the very first thing I want you guys to do is to optimize your gear a little bit, okay? First one I want to do is not the most important, but I do want to talk about it first, because what I think is going to be more important is to reinforce your weapon. And because I know that the weapon reinforcement costs a lot of money and could potentially wipe out all your gold, let's go ahead and focus on getting the enchantment on your gear first, which is much cheaper and is guaranteed and isn't RNG based and doesn't cost as much gold. So let's go ahead and talk about that first. Now, this is something that was recapped in the previous guide video, and we're going to be following the same kind of guidelines. What I suggest you do is to open up your DFOpedia here and scroll down until you get to the Flying Jericho card right here. This marks the end of the Harlem rare cards, and all of the Harlem rare cards from Flying Jericho going backwards, all of these cards essentially are very, very useful in buffing up basically all of the slots of gear, all the way up until I think this guy right here, Hostage Controller. So from Hostage Controller all the way down to Flying Jericho, all of these cards are useful. You know, Elemental damage +8 on your Magic Stone. You know, right here, Hoodwinker and, you know, Dealer Allant, Sabretooth right here, they're giving elemental damage for your accessories. You know, we got a sub-equipment card, a crit card for your, just your shoulder right there, but you know, you can get your top and bottom enchantments right here. So yes, all of these cards are useful. I do suggest getting them. You guys can see I have purchased some of them already. Flying Jericho, for instance, Hostage Controller, the Healer Soniar for my top and bottom, and my accessory cards right here. Two cards that don't exist in the rare version are your belt and shoes cards. Some decent cards for those are actually the uncommon cards. The Gambler card here, as well as the low ranking summoner card, are great alternatives for some crit. They're not the best in slot options, but I think they're good enough for unique gear at least. Now the thing you have to understand about Lotan, and why I kind of talked about him, is that yes, he's very useful. You're gonna want to utilize the inheritance system, especially when you have something like a really expensive weapon that you want to transfer and move those reinforcement levels and enchantment levels onto a stronger weapon when you get it. But the thing you got to understand about it is that the inheritance system will always cost you at least 50 of this item called Aelite here, and the Aelite, if you go and purchase it from the auction hall, actually costs you quite a bit of gold here. So if I was going to buy 50 of them, for instance, it cost me a little bit more than 1 million gold. Essentially what that means is if the enchantments and reinforcement and all of that does not exceed 1 million gold, then it's not worth it at all to use the inheritance system. It's actually smarter to just go ahead and purchase another card instead of trying to inherit that enchantment over. It's not worth it. It's not worth the 50 Aelite. So I just kind of mentioned that to just be smart about it. You know, if it doesn't exceed 1 million gold, then it's not worth it. Just go ahead and redo it, purchase it again on the new and stronger gear. You don't have to use the inheritance system every time. Obviously you want to use it on a +10 weapon because that costs more than 1 million gold to get. But you know, if it's these weako enchantments, I mean, getting all of these enchantments only took me like, what, 350k each? Not even 250k some of these. Very, very cheap, not worth it to inherit. And because of that reason, because I know that these are gears that are only going to be temporary, and I'm going to be replacing them with better gears, I'm not going to bother to upgrade these either. I know it is a little bit of min-maxing that I'm avoiding here, but like for instance this Hoodwinker card, I can upgrade it 2 times. I'm going to opt not to do that and just go ahead and put the enchantment on there directly without upgrading it. Because like I said, we're going to be upgrading this. This is just temporary, and I think it's good enough as is. So that's the first thing I suggest doing, guys. When you get your full unique set, go ahead and put some cheap enchantment cards, and the Harlem cards are perfect for that purpose and will give you a nice damage buff for very, very cheap. But anyway, guys, the next thing, and perhaps the more important thing, is I want you guys to reinforce your weapon as high as you can. Now, alrighty, I'm going to stop the video right here just to kind of warn you, this feature should only be performed on characters that are percentage damage characters. That's either physical percent or magic percent. If you are a fixed damage character instead, you don't need to reinforce your weapon, because instead you're going to be refining your weapon. I'll cover that after this little segment though. So again, don't do this unless you're a percentage damage character. I've done it to +10. It cost me quite a bit of gold to do this, you know, about 9-10 mil gold just to get it to +10. Now, my guess is if you're brand new to the game, you don't have nearly as much gold as, you know, I do, and that might not be feasible. But after you get your enchantments, there's not a lot of reason you're going to be using your gold as far as I'm concerned. Maybe have like a couple million in storage just for the rainy day, but use the rest of your gold to try to reinforce your weapon and try to get it as strong as you can, because it's going to help you out quite a bit for farming some harder content in the game. So +10 weapon is a good stopping point. You know, try to use whatever gold you can to try to get your weapon reinforced, because I think this is a big damage increase. And again, because of the inheritance system, all it's going to cost you is 1 million gold to go ahead and transfer that to any other stronger gear that you get in the future. So it's definitely an investment, but it's something that you're only going to have to do one time. with this cap, which is really nice. Alrighty guys, as promised, I am currently on my female grappler to demonstrate what you're going to be doing for fixed damage characters. You guys can see my female grappler here has the gauntlet right here, and instead of reinforcing at Kiri, which costs you a lot of gold, instead we're going to be refining our weapon here at June the Blacksmith, which actually, it won't cost us any gold at all. In fact, it's only going to cost us this item right here, the powerful energy. So again, do not reinforce your weapon on a fixed damage character, only refine it. Now, although it doesn't cost any gold, it is going to cost this item here. You have to farm all of this material on this character, and it's very limiting, and it costs some FP for most of the content that you can get powerful energy. So I'm going to talk about all of the places you can get powerful energies. First and foremost, if you go up here to this area over here, the Suju Arena is a place where you can get powerful energies by either entering the gold or silver dragon tournament. I recommend the silver one. Very easy content, devised for level 70 cap, so you can do it with no gear whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. Personally, my favorite to farm it when you just want to burn through all of your FP is actually here in Kalundal. If you go to the left all the way over here and go into this dungeon region right here, Twin Golem Betrayal, it takes you like literally 11 seconds and you can get powerful energies that way. The most efficient thing, and something that doesn't take any FP either, is actually going back down to the west coast to Joe Ferrero. So I'm going to teleport over there. And he has a weekly dungeon that is designed for powerful energies as well. The Trial of Champion here. You can enter here 3 times a week. But it gives you a lot of powerful energies there. And lastly, the last place I recommend for powerful energies is actually the Guild Hall, which is something I'm going to recommend as a separate kind of thing. If we go over here to Avant-Garde and go to the Guild Hideout, you have to join a guild to have access to this, which I recommend because you get a lot of features like town teleportation, you know, camaraderie, a little bit of buffs, EXP buffs, and guild stats and stuff like that. But if you go over here and utilize the court supply system, you can actually see you can get a powerful energy box for 200 tokens. Those are basically the places where you can farm powerful energy. Some of them take FP, some of them are weekly, but essentially what I'm trying to say is you have to farm that on the character that you're trying to do, and it's not possible to just, you know, get this thing highly refined really quickly. It's going to take you a couple weeks of time, dedicated time, and a lot of FP, because you can't just use gold to kind of supercharge that. Okay, let's say you got your weapon as high as you can, and you know you're new to the game, and you're like, okay, what do I do now, Rick? Well, the last thing I want you to do about your weapon is that you don't have a weapon enchantment yet. And where I suggest you farm that weapon enchantment is actually if you go into the special tab right here. It is the Imperial Arena. Now this is basically, this is really outdated content now. This is 10 level caps, you know, level 90 cap kind of content. But one thing that you can do this content for, which should be really easy nowadays, especially when you get this unique gear set. But here you can see, guys, in this tab right here, the token tab, you can use some of the dark side tokens, which you can get in this area, as well as some refined terranium, which you can farm in level 95 content, which we'll talk about perhaps in the next video. But that kind of content is still relevant in this cap, and here's a clear reason why. You can use some beads to get some enchantment to put on your weapon, which increase your elemental damage slightly. Now these are not the only means of increasing your elemental damage on your weapon. There are some new methods, but the reason why I like this one is because it's essentially free. It takes no time at all to farm up 100 terranium, and getting these dark side tokens are going to be really easy, especially with this new gear set that we have. So, but yeah, go ahead and jump into the Imperial Arena, get yourself some dark side tokens, and pick yourself one of these. And I do think it is worth it to put that onto your weapon, because that is yet another enchantment that will transfer over when you use the inheritance system. And that, guys, I think is going to conclude all I want to really talk about at this point in time. You know, essentially what we've done in this video, guys, and it's really only one day type of thing, is we farmed ourselves a unique gear set, level 100 unique gear set. We've improved our weapon a bit, and we've gone ahead and put on some very, very cheap preliminary enchantments to kind of optimize it a bit. Now you might be thinking this is a little bit overkill for, you know, the content, and I think you don't have to optimize that hard. You know, you can skimp out a little bit, but just keep in mind, you know, the content that we're getting ourselves into is going to be quite a bit harder, and this type of small you know, investment is going to pay off dividends for the next content that we're going to be talking about in the next video. Level 100 legendaries. Alrighty guys, I'm back on my female grappler because I want to showcase my real gear that this character has. Okay, you guys can see I am currently equipped in level 95 Harlem epics and a Sky Legacy weapon. Now I know a lot of people who were playing in the previous cap have gone through the effort to get this gear set. What would you do if you have this gear set? Well, essentially, like I said earlier, this level 100 unique is about as strong as this gear set is. So essentially, if you have this gear set, then none of what I said about the level 100 uniques apply. You can use this gear set to farm the stronger gear set that I'm going to be talking about in the next video. In fact, you can even use another system to bring over the stats of this level 95 epic gear over to level 100 epic in much the same way as inheritance system. But I don't want to talk about that now. I just want to warn you, if you have a set like this or anything stronger, then the uniques I've been talking about in this whole video do not apply to you. You don't need to, get a unique set and do it all over again. You can just use this gear set and we can use it to farm the last type of farming gear that we have, the level 100 legendaries. But that is something we're going to talk about in a lot more detail in the next video. I appreciate you guys stopping by for this video. I kind of was very long-winded in a lot of ways, and it's just because I want to be thorough, very thorough for you newbies out there who want to know how to gear in 100 cap. This is what you've got to do. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you knights later.